Hi everyone. Good. Well, it's afternoon for me. Afternoon for most people, I guess. It's Let's see who's on. Era, how are you doing? Can you guys hear me, by the way? Because this always plays up with me when I start this off. I often go on mute when I'm not supposed to be on mute, and you should be able to see my camera. Put it in the chat window or shout out. It's up to you guys.
I can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Hey, thanks, Sarah. Hi, Christine. Don't believe you met, but thanks for joining.
Christine's here.
Just
Yay.
yeah. So yeah, thanks for joining, Christine. So this one, just let Area, you've been on before, so I'll just I have got the chat window open on a multi-window for the YouTube and the Facebook. And what these are for are just open sessions for anyone to join. They're not regular. They're not fixed in terms of when I do them. I do them when they kind of something inspiring comes up, or I want to discuss something particular. But I try to do them every 2 weeks if I can. And they're just open forums for not just for me to blurb out my own perceptions and thoughts, which, by the way, are all in this thing. You can see that's a book I wrote. I don't know when, 2019, I think it was. It's on Amazon, but it's not a plug to buy it, by the way. But it's an open forum for others to discuss ideas, come up with their own perceptions at this present time, and then see where we go, individually and collectively. Because the whole point of me doing this is that people can expand towards what I believe and what I feel is the ultimate intention of all life, and the purpose of it is to actually evolve beyond it. Is to evolve beyond incarnational being. That's the ultimate objective. The objective isn't to keep returning back to the physical or the universal theatre, as I like to call it. Is to evolve out of it and to evolve into the state that you were from the moment the inception of thought triggered your spirit into being, and then when you entered the universal theatre. Between then and now, if you like, in linear time as we measure it, we have moved away from that state, and we are here because we need to evolve back into that state. So, and these sessions that I have will cover multiple topics, even ones that you guys may wish to suggest. And feel free to email or pop a message over and suggest anything you'd like to discuss, and we can do that. So it's not fixed. It's a very open forum. You don't have to put your name down, but you guys have, so it's great. Or Simpson images, whichever you like. But it's nice to see someone. Christine, thanks for joining. I don't think I've seen you on this before. People pop in and pop out over. It's fairly random because it's an open thing. And I have to say, sometimes I do talk to myself a lot of the time. So when no one joins, but I do discuss the topics. But today is an interesting one. I wanted to pose the question: is why do bad things happen, or why do bad things happen to good people? It's a multifaceted question, and it doesn't have a specific single answer, actually. So I'll kick off with that. Why do bad things happen? And why do bad things happen to good people? But what we call bad things are just events in our lives that we may not have intended or planned for. They're not necessarily bad, but they may be needed because we might need to experience something, but also imposed upon us beyond our free will. So ultimately, my perceptions are that we are here for a purpose. We do incarnate for a reason. We each have our individual intention and purpose for being here. We all do. And some of us will realize that, some of us may well not. It all really depends on whether the state of our tendency and expansion when we re-entered this space is going to push us into the questioning or inquisitiveness as to why we're here. Some people just simply don't, and that's not a negative thing on them. It's just it's not this lifetime. It's not going to be for them. They're not in that state of expansion in previous incarnations. If we want to look, we have to look at everything linearly because that's how our mind works. But we have an intention, but then beyond that, I think the intention is a small part. If we want to just use the basic rule that is thrown out there, we could even say it's an 80-20 thing. 20% purpose, 80% free will. The 80% will also determine whether you fulfill purpose, whether you realize your purpose or not. So the free will component of life is actually overwhelmingly more powerful than the purpose itself, because the free will component of what we are or what we experience, the power that we have within us, will dictate whether or not we follow what we already know. We can easily know a purpose and through free will take multiple actions which just divert us away from that to other avenues of experience. So I think there's a multiple things. And the first thing I would say we have to touch on with regards to why bad things happen is the belief that it is fated and it's God's will, or source's will, whichever you wish to use, whichever description you wish to use for that. I'm not saying anyone who listens to this or joins these needs to even believe that there is a source of all things and all that is. For me, it's not in question, and I don't hide that. That for me is not the case. The dualities, we have events in life because of duality. Duality is two spectrums of possibility of experience, and in between the both extremes, there are lots of variants. And our experiences are along that band of two extremes of ultimate, complete, positive, graceful experience to very, very dark and dense energy experience. And in between then, those two, there are very experiences. They're not the will of a divine entity or an omnipotent being that's imposing itself on us. That's created, that spectrum is created through duality. And the duality that we are in is ours alone. This is a difficult thing for many to accept because we don't like to take responsibility for our actions, words, thoughts, and intentions, which actually cause duality in our individual personal lives, but also cause duality as we cascade out into the whole, because we are the whole. We are a collective. It creates a dominant collective energy, planetary energy, universal duality. So duality is everywhere because everything creates duality through free will and all possibility, because we're here to be able to experience everything that we wish to create. So that's one thing I'd like to impress upon, is that it's not because there's some omnipotent deity out there wishing to punish humanity or each of us individually just because. From a whim of a deity to come down and impose something negative or positive on someone. It's really because of the duality we're in, and also our own individual tendencies and leanings, which create our own dualities, which cause these potential paradigms to exist. So I don't know if you guys have, before I go into other areas, if you have any comments on any of that. If you do, feel free to chip in. But I'll keep talking unless you do. But Ari, you've gone on mute, so I knew you would. Go for it.
You just can't shut me up. I do love listening to you, Raj. You make some excellent points that I think often our humanness tends to ignore or dismiss. I like the idea that you spoke to the duality of where we're living. So your soul, before it arrives, already knows the goal. How
Mm.
we arrive at the goal is entirely up to us. I think that's what you're
Yep.
saying.
Yep.
And we can choose, which is our power, choose to be distracted by the minutiae of detail of everyday life and attach ourselves to that which doesn't actually benefit anyone, most of all ourselves. So, just as an example, and you can kind of tell me if I'm way out in left field. If the soul came to make a quantum leap in the area of abandonment,
Mm.
that could look like someone, it would look like anything from someone missing the bus in the morning and being left behind to experiencing full on despairing abandonment of, let's say, your entire family and
Mm.
everything in between. So, how we arrive at the goal, the soul goal, if you will, is just by whatever we're choosing in the moment. And what, because our choices will manifest. It will it will realize results, whether they're benefits or consequences. The other
Mm.
thing I'm thinking is that the soul prepares us um, in such a perfect way for our journey here. And isn't it possible that the journey, the soul would prepare us by putting in that vibration, that energy, that pattern of um, being met with a lot more obstacles, forcing us, not forcing, that sounds rather bad, but allowing us to choose how to get through those obstacles.
Mm.
So, it's like you want the most bang for your buck, so you create a lot of obstacles before you come, just
Mm.
so when you get through it all, you reap a larger benefit.
Mm.
Um, so is that a possibility as well?
Yeah, I think I'd like to agree with you on that. This is actually interesting because it was the other aspect. I think there's many aspects. Like it's a nuanced question because you're right, um, but I also think there's a twist on that because not rather think I feel there's a twist on that. And yeah, we do come in, and if let's use your example, abandonment. Yeah, we will have. I do feel that. Depending on the intention of what you're talking about with regards to abandonment is intentional of incarnational experience. So we have a purpose. We call that, everyone calls that purpose. Let's just call it purpose. Um, and so depending on, I do feel that the predetermined crossroads, you might call them, or events or things to push you into the realization of, or to address the intention that you're describing, say abandonment. Um, they, we don't always. We may have few, many, or not so many um, events or crossroads in life that push us towards a certain, to help us realize or see what we're here for. So I totally agree. Maybe abandonment is a really good example because for that, maybe we that particular person would plan in um, many crossroads where they're going to be confronted with, like you say, just missing a bus to complete abandonment from family and friends as an extreme. And that may be further down the road where there's crossroads if they don't see the smaller signs. But there could be an instance where we have a purpose where we don't put so many crossroads in front of us, a lesser amount, but they may be more extreme or maybe more subtle. Um, but the flip side to that is this is the challenge I have with some as you know, because Era and I speak often, and she doesn't always join these groups, and I do truly appreciate when you do. And thanks, Christine, again for joining. Is that I'm not totally. I I don't like catch-alls, and I don't feel that life is a catch-all. That we have there are universal laws, which I'd like to bring up a bit later. And probably my eyes are watering because I've got allergies, Dallas allergies with cedar pollen from the mountains, from the trees that come down and blow right across Dallas. And so this is the period where I get a lot of watery eyes and block nose and things. So I've taken my drugs for this morning, but I'm not sure it's kicking in yet. Um, I do feel that our lives, for the other thing, why do negative things happen to us? Yes, the one, it's like we've already discussed, it's not the will of a divine entity. It is the fact that we're in a duality of all possibility and we're governed by free will actions, whereas thoughts and intentions that would create things for us. There are those intentional, predetermined events in our life path that um, we may experience, and I am also feeling that we may not, because we have free will to take us down completely different avenues, and we may end up making decisions for ourselves, which will determine a road or a back alley that we decide to venture down, which will completely take us off and totally away from our intended course, where we may not experience some of those crossroads that we predetermined because we've gone down a very, very, very a 180 from where we intended. And so there's so much possibility of it. And the third aspect is the free will of others. I feel that we need to understand the free will of others, because not everything that happens to us is our decision, our intention, an alternative path. It's also the free will of others. And that's a very, very powerful force in itself. Because um, let's look at today and look at the world we experience today, but also not even today, since the moment we were born in this incarnation. You can reel off countless things that are external to us within our macro environment, our world, our humanity, that are affecting us all the time. And the derivatives of these things can bring us illnesses we never planned, can bring us unforeseen events we never planned. I don't think everything is because we planned it or we made an agreement or a contract with someone. I think this is too easy. I don't believe this is the case, because we live in a paradigm of absolute, complete possibility, governed by the free will of every billion human that we share this planet with. So someone could quite easily just walk in front of you in or down a street and suddenly just decide randomly, for no preconceived event, just to hit you in the face. Now, that doesn't mean you deserve it. That doesn't mean it's planned, but it happens to you. It could be the macro environment of drugs, contamination, air, food, and water that continues to happen. And I jotted this down as well. It's our attachment. And what this all comes down to me is the random free will of others can affect you. And that could incur either a positive or a negative outcome for you. Nothing that you would have planned, nothing that you would have agreed, but it's a free will event. And life isn't fully documented on a piece of paper. We have purpose, intention, free will, but we must understand universal law. And because that underpins everything, not just for us, for everyone. And the free will of others affects us today. Look what's happening around the world today. We're affected by the decisions and the forces that we don't have control over, that are looking to impose things on us. Now, that is a crossroad or a possibility in a future timeline that we would have seen as an infinite being before entering here, but it's not something maybe we would have planned for or determined would have been possible. Would have been something we would have an event or a predetermined experience in. So I do think the free will of others is something that we can't disregard, but we can't make an excuse for it either. we can't have a catch-all for everything's predetermined and we planned for it before. Because I honestly do not feel that in my spirit or heart at all. I do feel, and I wrote this in my book in the back where I addressed this question, that the free will of others is important to recognize because they can have impacts on us.
Well, I agree
Well,
that they'll have
yeah,
impact. That's absolutely how things work. But I also feel that we chose to come here at a
yeah,
time when things were, rocking and rolling, and we may not like everything, but it allows for the the uprising of the self to respond to all of that, because the big thing is that as human beings we do tend to want to control our environment, our situations,
mm,
our lives, the people we have in it, and then we get a little bent out of shape when other people's choices infringe on that. But it's all perfect. It's all so perfect because it allows us the opportunity to choose to get angry or be controlled or uplift to something more in alignment with what we came here to experience. It's all perfect because it allows for every opportunity to exist. On a human level, we look at it and say, well, this sucks. This is not what I signed up for. And I
yeah.
didn't, so,
We
but
all have that. We all have that regularly.
well, I had it yesterday to a great degree. I was very, very angry. And then I sat back and watched the aftermath of my anger unleashed and understood that that wasn't serving anyone to their highest good. So there is an opportunity to choose in that moment. Do I want to choose to be angry? Do I want to choose to exacerbate this that I do not like? Or do I choose to somehow find the way to uplift? Everything constitutes a choice. That's what drives our bus.
Mm,
So, do we come in and have these kinds of events planned for us? I don't think so. I think it's a goal, it's never the plan, it's the result
mm,
that we can realize. But the whole journey can take us off into a totally different area. I completely agree with you. That is just as fruitful and just as enriching and just as empowering on a soul level,
mm.
that will feed our evolution. But we're here for a reason at this time when everything is crumbling. And we chose that. We
Yeah,
don't choose how it affects us, but we can choose how to respond to it. And I learned yesterday that reaction is not great. Response is better, right?
reaction. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the way I'm kind of seeing it. I don't know, Raj.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that because as I think from what I said, I'd align with that because we do see but when we make incarnational decisions to come into incarnational life, we make it from an infinite space, as you know, and we make it from a state of being which is infinite in all, and so we see infinite in all before we choose to reincarnate into wherever and into whatever. Um, and so we have the sight already. We already know because as you know, timelines are written way in advance to current and previous actions, words, thoughts, and intentions of all of us. Universally as well, in terms of all being and all life that exists, um, and in the quantum field in Akasha. So we are able to perceive and see all of this way before we uh, decided to come here. So yeah, I totally agree. And with all of that, all that said, we still choose. We do, and it is perfect. Um, but I do agree with you. What you said at the last part there was that yeah, we may not always plan for it though. That's the thing. I think what I do stray away for is that um, everything's predetermined. We all always know, and this is it is always ends up being perfect. I do feel that, but it depends how you approach it. Reaction response, I suppose, is one thing, and that brings me on to the other thing: is things. Why do bad things happen? It's a good segue actually onto the next thing: is attachment or detachment. A friend said to me the day, actually, we were discussing something, and I don't know why he said it, but he said, "Oh, Buddha said life is about suffering." I went, "Well, really? I don't think that was the case, actually. I think the real message there was, I'm hopping the mic. Is that you, Era? I don't know who that is. I just saw a message there. But that this life of suffering is about attachment and detachment. It's not that we are here to suffer. So I think that was kind of potentially misguided interpretation. But I do think that is an important aspect of what the Buddha's teachings were: is our attachment to material or our detachment from what's important. And I think other things that causes, I suppose, I feel other things that causes having alternate experiences, negative things, if you like, bad things might happen to us or others, is the perception, there's attachment to the material, the mind, the ego, dumbing down of awareness, or and the detachment to a wider perspectives of what we truly are, why we're here, seeking our own purpose, making free will choices to, like you say, respond to those external macro events that occur in our environment, to the duality which is persistent while we allow it to be persistent, and uncovering purpose, but striving personal free will decisions towards a greater space. I do feel that is important. I think it's all blended together. I don't think any of these things are separate. It's all one of the same. So there are many reasons, like we said earlier, why negative things happen. But I think it's the detachment and attachment piece. The more we're attached to that which really doesn't matter beyond this, and detached from what is important beyond this, will then push us to create avenues for ourselves, which might lead into more stress, pursuing things that don't create happiness for us, don't bring us fulfillment, bring us friends that we don't really want, relationships that are not real. All tiny things like that. And then it could be other extremes of things that cause us harm, or deep sadness and sorrow and hunger in the world and things like that as a more collective reason. So I think at the foundation of all of that, it's a mixture of all of those things for me. The duality that we create on our own. There is no omnipotent being creating this for us. It's our own state. It's predetermined events. It's free will of others, how we respond to those. Attachment to the material, detachment to wisdom and knowing. And then our own actions, words, thoughts, and intentions that create more of the same or lead us to a better state of being. I think that's what it is. Ultimately, it's universal law as well. So I don't know what you guys think about that, because I did want to show you an image I had created back when I did a video on universal law, which I think is important to talk about. So let me just quickly bring that up on this UBS. Here we go. It should replace my image, hopefully. I think you guys can see that. This I made a video on this some time back, and I thought it was important because understanding universal law is really important for me in a life experience, because once we understand this, then we understand that we're responsible for it, and how we um, um, how we use universal law to create our collective experience and individual experiences. And I think the most important bit here is the free will bit here. And the energy, intention, thought, and karma. So I feel energy and thought are one of the same thing. So energy and intention, we have a thought which drives an intention, which flows energy into some kind of form of manifestation, physical, or emotional, or mental, or spiritual. Something will change or move through a thought or an intention. That will also create what I believe is karma. Um, Depending on what the outcome of this energetic movement is through a thought or intention of it, will create an energetic movement through action, word, thought, imposed upon ourselves or another, which will either create a positive karmic balance or a negative karmic balance. But all of this is wrapped around a free will. We have free will to determine intention and thought. And I think this is important, because this is the foundation of what we experience, I believe. And it's also the foundation of our incarnational lives, and what there will be now and in the future, our timelines. Our timelines are pathways in the current lifetime, and also our tendencies, which are things that we keep repeating, patterns of behavior that we're not resolving from lifetime to lifetime. We haven't got all of these on here, but I think universal law is key. Do you guys have any views on universal law itself? Do you have any comments on any of that? Let me see if there's anything in the chat windows. Ah, we've got someone on, but they're just listening in. Okay, so I'll chip in on this one. So, and then we have the universal law itself, which is yeah, it's pretty. It's just wondering, those are different. These down here, is that you, Christine? Yeah. So we've got human law. So I think universal law. Well, let's just go from left to right. So we've got natural law, which is the law of reciprocation. I think Era, you're a bit better at explaining this one than me, but we get what we put out into this world. It's a natural law of reciprocation of we may call this karma, if you like, and it's also our natural law of our rights and liberties, freedoms, and sovereignty of the self. And we get what we put out. It's the basic laws of life that we come into. Universal law is all of the above plus others. We're going to that. And these are human laws. These are laws that humanity creates above, on top of the natural laws of reciprocation, energy, and vibration, which are part of reciprocation. Our sovereignty, liberty, and freedoms that we have as natural beings. And then human law are these things can be imposed upon, but can't be broken. Can't be broken, because these are laws. These are natural laws of, I suppose, of being in human form or on the earth plane, that can be imposed upon but can't be broken. Human laws can be broken and are imposed upon us, but we don't have to follow these. Universal law is something that impacts us, I feel, eternally. It's an infinite space. This is an infinite law. This is within the universal theatre. This is human imposed, i.e. physical, things that we have within this matrix that we live in. Universal law is transcendental. It's what governs everything, universally, collectively, and individually for us. There are two things missing here, which are timelines and tendencies. So if just imagine there's another 2 in here, which I think I might add for a future session, I think. But effectively, thought and intention is what we have before we actually do something. Everything is energy. It should be an underlying current underneath here, but I've depicted it as a leaf. But it's an underlying current throughout everything, because everything is the force of energy. It's either forced into a negative state or a positive state or some variant in between. So it's a current in between. But we use energy through our thoughts and intentions. So we have a thought, we have an intention, which then will take energy and move it through force of thought of intention into something. It could either be an action, a word, or a thought. It could be a collective action. It could be a movement of something that affects you or many others. Now, that movement itself there will then determine whether or not what the outcome of that force and energy determines whether or not the karmic event the event that's created creates a positive or negative karmic event. And that's what we hold. We actually hold karma on everything, actually, even for I play everything, even microsecond, millisecond of even a thought holds a karmic vibration. Everything, nothing is negated in life at all. I think everything has some form of karma, and we can hold karma from also allowing something that maybe we haven't directly created. So it's important to note karma is pervasive. We don't govern it. Our ego doesn't negate it. It's very, very powerful through our thought and manipulation of energy, but also what we allow, what we ignore, what we push, what we don't push. It's what we're aware of effectively creates karma. And through that, we create timelines. Through the mix of these four, we create timelines within our life experience. And what are timelines? Timelines are potential possibilities of experience, if you like. So we discussed earlier on, we can move ourselves into different pathways. We can move ourselves into different roads, different forks of experience. And we'll do this through the mix of intention, thought, energy, creating an event, creating an experience, creating something for yourself or others, which creates karma for yourself, which will also then determine whether or not you stay on the path that you're on or you go into a different path. So timelines we have multiple timelines in our lives. We have multiple timelines collectively. There are multiple timelines within this earth plane. There are multiple timelines within this universe. If we consider remote viewing, for example, or even when someone does a psychic reading, what are they looking at? Well, they're pulling the timeline that has the greatest force from the Akasha, because that's the one that they're seeing, one that the cards pull out, one that their intuition is tapping into, because it's in a wider frequency, allowing them to tap into the frequency that is the Akasha or a quantum field. They're pulling in the event of the timeline that we individually have given the most force and is the one we're experiencing today. But that can change in a heartbeat, depending on our intentions and thoughts, our actions and our words that are manifestations of energy or the movement of energy, creating karmic forces for us. So I'll give you an example, and it's all done through free will. Free will, again, is an underlying current through all of this. I had a reading with a friend back in I think it was December 2018. I can't quite recall. I think it was then. And it's when post an operation I had, I think at the beginning of February of that year. And because of that procedure, I had many unbalanced. I was just imbalanced a little bit throughout that year because I didn't know what was going on, where I should go, because obviously I'm not living in the UK, away from home. And it was something that was causing imbalance to me. And I remember I went to go see my friend, and I wasn't looking to read him, but because she offers that service, and that's part of how she earns an income. I said, yeah, let's throw out some cards. I already knew what she was going to tell me. And the reason for that is because the thoughts I was projecting out through, and the energy through which I was projecting those out, created that reading before I even had it. I already created that timeline. I already manifested it because of the force of energy that I'd put into, you may call worry, a little bit of anxiety that I'd had through that year, post the procedure that I went through, not knowing exactly what I was going to do. And the card reading was a manifestation of that, because it was exactly what I thought she was going to tell me. And I knew it already, that's what she was going to say. But that wasn't what I wanted. But I'd created it because of thought, intention, manifesting energy, creating a very, very powerful timeline of force, which is what is the most dominant at that time. And that was what was read. Subsequently, I recognized that 3 months later, and I completely transformed the outcome to what it was I truly was moving towards. And it wasn't going to be based on fear, anxiety, stress, and worry. So it's important to understand timelines from flux and change in our own life, but we create many. Some we'll experience maybe for a moment, others we will experience a lot, and some we may never experience, but we can create many different forms of experience that we may or may not touch. But every single thought and expression and movement of energy will create a potential fork in our branch. It could be a tiny little twig that we may never experience, but it will be there, and it will persist permanently in the Akasha and the quantum field. Nothing ever goes away. And what we experience is the thing that we give the most force to. Now, what else is missing from here? The other leaf is tendency. That's another underpinning universal law, and its tendency is around, I think it's linked to reincarnation. It's all very intertwined, but we'll just touch on it. Tendency for me is repeating patterns. And these are things that we are looking to resolve. We create tendency through free will. We create tendency through thought and intention, the movement of energy into an event or an action, creating a timeline, creating a pattern of behavior or a different pattern of behavior or a negation of one we're trying to resolve. Anything can be there. Incarnational life is for us to address that purpose and intention we have for life, is for me to address those tendencies, those patterns of behavior, cyclical patterns of behavior that we are not addressing. And each lifetime we may come and address many things that we just don't seem to resolve. I'm here for my own. You guys are here for yours. I couldn't possibly say what each individual is here for. It's for us to decide we want to find out, and the universe will allow and bring people, places, and changes in our life so that we can reconnect to those things. But tendencies are what are created, what we created through the moment we entered this universal theatre, through the inception of our spirit alone from the very beginning. We enter in a state of grace, and then we, through our free will and the discovery of ego, I guess, and all possibility, we create duality for ourselves, and we also move ourselves away from that state of grace. And through moving ourselves from that state of grace, we are in the infinite field, this field of experience, which is the universe. As we drop into it, we create tendencies, things that we are, our egos, our materialism, our distractions, our abstractions, our attachments and detachments, creating suffering, as Buddha would say, creating karma, creating more timelines, creating more karma, creating more timelines, creating more karma, and so it goes on. And henceforth, we will could have hundreds or thousands of incarnational lives in many forms, in many places, to address those things. Um, the the moksha, which is the Hindu belief of releasing oneself from the cycle of rebirth, is about that very thing. It is about resolve. Life is about resolving tendencies, but around that is experiencing and creating a wonderful life that we wish to experience. The different things in this wonderful experience of material life: the sun on our backs, the music, the love, the books, the knowledge, the mountains, the trees, the seas, animal life, other people, love, happiness, joy, musician, reader, scientist, whatever it is we wish to experience, because it's something that we're drawn towards. Is we're also here for that's part of what we're experiencing, but we have to be our challenge is to bring into those things, understand that they're for a purpose. We may want to become a singer, songwriter, for example, because that's just an interest that we have. Um, but just remind ourselves that whilst we do that, our actions, words, thoughts, and intentions are always steered towards a positive light and steered towards addressing things and challenging ourselves to become better in each lifetime and use our free will, manipulate and use, not manipulate, I suppose, direct the force of energy through our thoughts and intentions in the right direction for a more infinite purpose during what we like to experience, therefore balancing our karma, creating the right timelines for ourselves, and addressing our tendencies that we've created many, many lifetimes before. And that's what universal law actually is all of those things. And those things, those aspects, if you like, those, what is it, 7 things, um, we can't avoid. And I think when we avoid those things and we move away from those things, I'll just take this picture off and you can look at my ugly mug for a moment. Where we are. Here we go. Yeah, when we avoid those things, I feel that is when we start experiencing things we don't want. When we ignore universal law, even parts of it, we start to move away from our intention, purpose, and things like that. And we start experiencing things that we didn't intend or were not in resonance with our purpose or intention, and we go different directions as well. And I suppose that moves us into attachment to things beyond us, and attachment to the material, which is where Buddha say we suffer because we attach to the wrong things and we detach from the right things, I suppose. So I've talked for a long time there. Any comments on any of that? Christine, do you have anything you want to put in the chat window there? If that's helped, or have I just confused things even more?
No, I think that was a great explanation and very clear. I like the fact that the attachment is possibly one of the biggest things to balance in a lifetime, because people think that we often it's okay to attach to a specific outcome. And when that outcome isn't realized, then we're hooped. Then we spin our wheels. But the whole thing is, with the universal laws and all the underpinnings of it, we have so many different opportunities and choices and outcomes. We don't really want to attach to just one. So yeah, I think the attachment detachment is really important. And I like what you said about Buddha and the suffering, because I don't know about you, but I'm a quick learner. People often say that you can't know joy unless you've suffered. Well, I don't have to spend an
I don't
entire
believe that.
lifetime suffering to know
No,
what
I don't. I
joy
don't.
is.
I don't believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
No.
don't believe that either.
No. I reject that completely. We're not here to suffer. I think it's a misunderstanding, a misrepresentation.
Mhm.
If we're not here, it frustrates me. Era, thanks for bringing that up. Um, and this is I you know I will always say, and people don't have to like it, that universal law is blunt and brutal in its simplicity and its impact. We can put whatever excuses around we wish, but the reason we keep incarnating is because we refuse to accept the brutal reality of universal law. And that is one underlying thing: responsibility, accountability, and ownership of our own lives and how we contribute to the collective. And this thing that we're here to suffer is nonsense, because, and I'm very blunt about it. I've got no airs and graces about this. I don't do woo and I don't do softness. I'm just here to speak my own truth, and I don't like that at all, because it's not understanding why they're suffering. Because suffering is there because we've created it universally and collectively, but sometimes it's the impositions of external, it's our own choices, but it's also the attachment and detachment, which then moves us away from our true intention. I will say something, and I'll use my own self as an example, and I don't just say things because they just come. I'll give you an example of how it's happened for me. And Ari, going back on what you were saying, is these were events that I created, but there were timelines that were there for me and options. Now, I will say that back a long time ago, about 20 years back now, I made a decision to be somewhere and do something. I was in London, I think. I moved down there, and then I got married. Um, and my life wasn't suffering before that. There wasn't harmony at all. It was, but I look at to where I was born, who I was born, the family I was born into, perfection. It wasn't good. If people want to look at it materialize, it wasn't good, but it was. It's perfect. I went to the right place with right parents, right siblings, right home, right city, everything. Socioeconomic state was right, even though there was nothing there. Um, but I also made decisions uh, um, that I didn't follow my intuition, the voice inside. I made some decisions back 20 years ago. And for about 8 years, you could say I suffered. But why did I suffer? I didn't suffer because life is meant for suffering. Absolutely not. I suffered because I made some decisions against my intuition. I suffered and experienced things that I didn't want, that I didn't expect, that started to take me away from who I truly was, the spiritual being I was always, that I hid from the world. And I came out with this book. That was my coming out. But I made loads of choices, and I created timelines that didn't bring alignment with my purpose and intention, and therefore suffering. So life is not, we're not here to suffer. I utterly reject it. It's because we suffer. We experienced, I don't even like the word suffering because it's so negative. It's horrific, actually. Um, I think this is frozen on me. I'm not even sure. I think it's frozen. I mean, you guys can still hear me, I hope. But
We can hear you,
yeah,
but the
yeah,
picture
it's back
froze.
now.
Yeah.
I don't like the word suffering because I think it's horrifically negative and such a low vibration word. But we're not here to suffer. We suffer ultimately when we're when we're abstracted away so far from what we came here for. That's ultimately what it is. The more we are detached and veer away from what we are incarnated for, the more derivative experiences we will have, that we will determine as suffering, because internally they're not in alignment with the spirit and the heart, which knows our purpose, but it's experiencing things that are in a vibration that is not alignment with that purpose. And so that is what we call suffering. We're not here to suffer, we create it for ourselves. And that's the reason for incarnation. It all goes round and round and round. It's so interconnected. It's beautiful. It
Yeah.
really, truly is.
You
It's
know,
so interconnected. There's nothing that is separate. It's all related to each thing. And we just need to understand that so critically for our own benefit, if we're going to avoid this suffering. Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
exactly. I think the best quote I ever heard, and I just wanted to jump in and share it.
Mm.
I think it was by Buckminster. His name just eluded me. Buckminster Fuller. And he said,
Never heard of that. I'll look that up.
yeah, learning, growth, and evolution is mandatory. Pain and suffering is optional. So
Yeah.
that to me speaks to we are in control, right? Really, in essence, where we may not like the impact of other people's free will choices, but we are in control how we respond. And pain and suffering is an option in it all. But we are here to learn, grow, and evolve. And we can
Yeah.
do it with joy or not. That's how I
Mhm.
kind of see it. But I'm totally on board with your take on suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. I want to bring with final thing because we're kind of running out of time. But let me see if I can bring this up. I love this quote, and I popped this up a while ago. I think it was last year, but I do love this quote, and I'm going to put it into full view and so you guys can see it. It's a great quote. Now it's so small I can't even see it, so I'll open it on my desktop. Oh dear. There you go. This is okay. But it's a quote by Mohanji. Now he's not a guru or anything. It's just a quote that he said. And I thought it was great. And effectively, true spirituality is transformative spirituality, that which transforms you. We follow rituals, we follow gurus, we follow various activities, but unless transformation happens in life, it is just an activity. Absolutely. We have to make the transformation. What this is saying for me is transformation is something that we have to incorporate in our lives. We have to incorporate within, and we don't need rituals. We do not need gurus, and we don't need symbolic movements or things around us. We don't. This is basically saying we can't have spirituality as something trendy. It's not something trendy to do, and a fad, or just moving from one new age thought or philosophy to the next. It's a life-changing thing, and it's very, very difficult. And I would say, on closing, is that let's go back on here. I would say that we enter this life as a spiritual being, as the self, the true I. We will end this journey of incarnational life with the self and the true I. It'll start with us and it will end with us individually, taking responsibility, because there's a spoke that goes to the center of the wheel, and one of them is just our own. In between all those incarnational lives that we have, in between those 2 points, we might follow a guru, we may follow a religion or religions, we may follow rituals, we may go down dark paths and positive paths, but in the end, we will determine how many incarnational lives we will have. We will determine the suffering that we will experience. But at the very end, we will end up on that spoke, which is the I, the you, your own spoke. And you'll traverse the journey of expansion to the center. which that center is returning to a point of grace and releasing yourself from the cycle of rebirth, if you like, which is not imposed upon you, it's imposed by the self. And that's where I'll leave it, I think. If you guys have any comments to close, otherwise, I will have to say thank you to both of you. And thank you, Christine, for joining. I hope, by the way, you found this useful. It is interesting for me to get comments. So please, if you want to send something through, I'd appreciate it. And if you're going to join again, you want to talk about something else or something that's particularly interesting for yourself, then please do so and share amongst anyone who you think might be interested in joining this in the future. That would also be really appreciated. But thanks again very much. Thanks, Era, for joining. Thanks, Christine. I hope this time kind of works for everyone. I never can tell because I try to reach, I get a lot of interest from the East, a lot of Asia, but because the time zones are so not in sync, I can never hit everyone. So it's really difficult. So I try to make it so that most time zones can jump on. I get a lot of interest in Asia, but because of the times I run these, I think they just don't join. They're probably either asleep or it's too early in the morning or too late at night. So, but thanks so much, you guys, and I'll chat with you on the next one. And have a great and look after yourself in between. Thank you.